In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned an old kegerator into a fermentation chamber. If you'd like to see how I did it, stick around and I'll show you. Hey everyone, welcome back. Larry here again to share with you a little DIY project that I've been working on this past month. Here in this cold winter, not a lot going on except staying in the house, staying warm, right? I can't even brew out here so much in the winter time because of logistics of water supply and access and drainage is just non-existent in my water supply in drainless garage. So I decided to focus on other areas of home brewing. In particular, this time around, I am going to show you what I did to improve and simplify what I've done for my own home brewing setup to make my life easier. You may know that where I live here in the Midwest, I have a basement where I do a lot of fermentation. I brew out in the garage, I ferment in my basement, which over the years has always meant carrying 5-gallon fermenters, sometimes multiple, because I got to split batches, 10-gallon plus batches into 5-gallon chunks, in order for me to carry it through my house, down my stairs, through more doors and stairs, down to my basement where I, luckily and fortunately, after 21 years of brewing, have been able to brew and ferment in my basement without having any real temperature control. It's normally in the mid to upper 60s in my basement all the time. So for ales, it was always a perfect thing. I never really felt a need to do temperature control. But over the past few years, or maybe 5 now, I went from brewing 5-gallon batches to 10-gallon batches. Bigger batches meant more 5-gallon fermenters to carry through my house and down the stairs, right? And also, I've also learned, as you develop with any hobby, a little bit of nuance. Sometimes, like certain beer styles can benefit from a certain temperature range smaller than or on one extreme of the yeast range that you're using. One example might be a Hefeweizen yeast strain, which can help you produce clove or banana-like characters, depending if you ferment on the lower or higher end of that range. And also, quite frankly, I'm getting older, right? I don't want to be stuck having to cart heavy, sloshy fermenters through my house, especially when they're hard to carry. I mean, I got things like carboy hauler straps for the carboys and things, and I got some fermenters with little handles on them, which aren't comfortable to carry that weight through. And really, there's times where I just want to ferment a 10-gallon batch in a 10-gallon fermenter. So I figured I had to change things up. I want to be able to ferment closer to my brew space. Now, this is my brew space, my garage, right? I brew out here all the time. So therefore, my fermentation needs to be out here all the time. But being in the Northern Illinois, Midwest here, cold winters, hot, humid summers, it's not really ideal to find a corner to go put a fermenter in out here. So I said, okay, I got to fix this, right? So a few years ago, I've upgraded my Kegerator. If you recall that video, I'll put a link to it here for you. But I went from using this Kegerator to a newer Kegland Mark something 4 series, whatever it was, that holds 3 taps and 3 kegs now. So this was converted since then into a fridge. It has racks that I can put in there for beer overflow or for dry brining or holding meats and other things I want to let sit overnight or marinate all day before I throw them on the grill, right? Well, I'm not using that fridge all the time, so I figured let's convert it into a fermentation chamber. After all, this Kegerator was actually intended to hold full-size kegs. And now this is a keg. This is a kegmenter, not a real official keg, but it's the same size as generally almost the same size as a keg I would use if I were to buy a whole half barrel to put on tap, right? So I figured, well, let's convert this thing into a Kegerator, and I actually wanted to test fit it right. I used, of course, I put this thing in here, this kegmenter, to make sure it fit. I also have the I think the Keg King stub nose that fits in here, the Fermzilla all-arounder, my carboys, my big mouth bubbler. Everything I have in my current fermenter collection will fit in here, with the exception of the Spike Flex Plus. And the reason for that is because it's got that oblong extended, basically an arm coming out the side that keeps it from actually fitting in there. All right, so that's one exception, but for the most part, I think I found a solution going forward. Now, we'll walk through the build here. It was real simple. Again, it's an old Kegerator. I mean, I can close this door and show you. It's just a simple Kegerator. I actually was able to, I kept all the parts that came with it, including the cap on top that plugs the hole on top where the draft tower would actually come through. So I kept that around. I did a little work to make it a little bit more airtight. I put a little bit of foam rubber stripping around it, and I put the cap on top of that, and I compressed that with a little toolbox that I have that sits on top of this thing when it's actually not on this table where it is. It's not normally where it is. It'll be off to the side here where I'm actually going to ferment in this thing. So let's get a closer peek inside. First, I'm going to remove the kegerator. All right, so I'll zoom in here with some B-roll, but the point is that I had to find a way to heat this thing because it's a refrigerator by default, right? You plug it into the wall, it cools down just fine. This little cheap thermostat is not reliable, so I use an InkBird, a wireless InkBird. I think it's the IT308 Wi-Fi version, but you can use the one without the Wi-Fi. I just happen to have both on hand. The Wi-Fi is cooler because I can track it and control it on my phone from inside my house. Love that. I can probably do another video on that specific topics some other time. But the chilling was inherent, being a fridge, of course, so I needed a way to heat this thing up. So I went through some ideas, maybe some light bulbs that generate heat inside this thing. I thought maybe I wanted to do maybe some sealing heat mat pads, and I actually have one, or had one already. And so this here is like a little heat pad for a starter mat for seeds, right? So you have those little trays with the little cups of soil and the seeds in them to help get them started. And this is just a regular plug-in device. And it will just sit in here loosely or taped up in here. And I gave that a try at first to see how well it would work. And it was marginal. It was able to get it up to about 70 degrees, but it took a very long time to do during some of the testing I did. And I figured this is like a 17 or 20 water. Figured it was just borderline. If my garage didn't get as cold as it does, it can be freezing out here. If I didn't have the actual garage heater on set for like, I think 40 degrees at a minimum just to keep things from freezing out here. But still wasn't gonna really cut the mustard, I thought, for good temperature control. So I went ahead and got what you see in here is the twice the size version off of Amazon. I'll put a link to that. I'll put links to everything I show in here if I can find them in the description down below. So you can go down to the video description and just pick on the links and go buy these yourselves, or at least look up the product yourself, right? But this is the one I think it's like 40 watts, twice the size. Worked a lot better, heated everything up within, well, I don't know, you want to give me some temperature ranges and windows, but it was at least twice as fast as this one, considering that's more than double the wattage, right? Much better, so I went with this. Now, I taped it in here just to hold it in place, otherwise it would just curl up and collapse, which is okay as long as you have a fermenter in there wedged against it. But for the sake of the demo here, as well as going forward, I put a little bit of duct tape around just to hold it in there. So you might be wondering, okay, well that's great, Larry, but how did you run heat to it, right? And well, that was much more fun and actually simpler than I thought. I didn't have to drill any holes. I thought I was going to have to drill holes. Truth is, this is an old Kegerator. It already has a hole in the back in the back here, for the gas line to come in from the CO2 tank outside, right? It's a pretty good sized hole. And I was able to feed a cord and the temperature probe of the InkBird through the back there and wrap it even with a little bit of extra foam rubber to keep the air out and seal it up a little bit better. And as far as the power cord, I just went to Home Depot, found like a power cord for a tool. I just had to buy the extra piece for the receptacle that's back in here that I was able to attach, strip the wires, feed the wires into it, screw it back down, and now I had a receptacle in here. And since I have a source of power up in here, so I can actually take this out of here like this, right? And I'll show a close up here, but I can put anything I want here. I can actually put, if I wanted to put like a reptile heat lamp or just a plain old-fashioned incandescent light bulb in here, I can buy a little adapter for that if I wanted to go that way. But I thought the heat mat idea was a little better because the heat's more spread out across the back of the fridge. It doesn't emit any light, of course, because if you're using like a Formzilla or a snub nose, whatever, it's going to be a problem, right? Because you have light, then you have to wrap it, and it's just not worth it. Figured sealing heat mat was probably the best option for me. And the InkBird probe that I fed through here, I just taped to the sidewall and just let it dangle. There's other ways to do it. I have a little bit of wire coming from the back of the fridge to the thermostat. I can actually wrap it around it and let it dangle. That's all great too. It's however you want to do it, right? This is the flexibility of this, and plus this is all undoable, guys. I can actually take this all apart, take everything back out, and convert it back into a fridge, or leave everything in and just put the racks back in and take the heat pad out maybe, and turn it back into a fridge when I'm not using it as a fermentation chamber. So therefore, I have a multi-purpose functional kegerator / refrigerator / fermentation chamber all in one. And I like that because I'm tight on space around here. So the process going forward will be brew in here, cool it, the wort, rack it to my fermenter, which will be right here. Just roll it over to the fridge, which will just be a few feet away. Lob it in there. Program my inkjet to, my InkBird to whatever temperature I want to ferment at, and let it go. Now, as far as the InkBird goes, I did a little bit of testing. I need to do some more as to the heat and the average heat in here, because the probe up high, because heat rises, tends to sense warmer heat than the heat down below, or than the temperature down below. And at one point, my beer took, normally my beers take about 2 weeks to ferment, start to finish, and have a few days rest included in there for the diacetyl rest, right? This time around, it went 2.5 weeks, and I even had to raise the temperature up several degrees towards the end just to keep it going, because it was a really long fermentation. Well, that's what gave me the clue to check and try to correlate the math here, because I was reading as low as 10 degrees lower in the bottom, about 5 degrees mid-range up, and right about where it needed to be up high. So taking the average temperature out of there, I suppose, do an average, figure it out. But the InkBird and probably other temperature controllers, or the thermometer controllers, whatever, they actually have an adjustable offset. So if it's reading high and you know the average temperature is lower, you can input an offset value into that InkBird and actually have it display what the average temperature is going to be in there for you for what you need to do. And that InkBird is really cool too. I never did a review on it because I never much had a chance to and had much to say about it. But with the Wi-Fi version, with the app that comes on the phone, it actually tracks the history of the temperature, so you can see it kick on and off over time and days, and it's actually pretty cool. It's a neat thing. Required? No, of course. I have my original InkBird here that doesn't have it, which would work just as well. I can actually change the temperature right on the wall and look at the display right on the wall, I just have to come out here to do it. It's kind of nice in the wintertime just to check on it in the comfort of your own house, change the temperature up and down as however you want, and carry on. So that's it. You know, when I'm done with this video, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back where it belongs against the wall, plug everything back in, and set it back up for my next beer. I hope you found some of this information useful, maybe some helpful information for you there. Again, I've never been into temperature control much before because I didn't feel like I needed it. It's nice to have, it is nice to have, and now I have it. And I'm excited about it, all right? So give me that thumbs up, leave some comments down below, questions, whatever you want to do. I'll put links down below for the stuff that I've shown here if I can find them. Make it a little easier for you if you want to reproduce what I did here without having to do all your own shopping and research on your own. And having said all that, you all take care. Talk to you all next time. See ya.